All right, this video is for the lesson 513 homework. We're looking at special right triangles today. So special right triangles are ones that have, that's not any better. That's a little bit better. Have either two 45-degree angles or a 30 and a 60. Okay, so remember, all triangles have to add up to 180. And so, like this first triangle here on number 1. This angle is 90. So if we take 180 and we subtract 90, this angle is 45. Whoop. Minus 45, maybe. Minus 45. That means the other one has to be 45. Okay? So in a right triangle, if one angle is 45, the other one's automatically 45. Okay? Let's look at this one here. Same thing here. If you have a 90-degree angle and a 30-degree angle, my goodness. The other one, my goodness, has to be 60. Okay? Vice versa. If you have a 90 and a 60, the other one has to be 30. Okay? All right. This is something that you would have covered 6th grade. It's probably the last time you saw it. So there's no way it's still in your brain. Triangles. Triangles are pretty cool shapes. The side links coordinate with the angle measures, right? So if I have a triangle and let me take that calculator down. Let's say this one's 30, this one's 50, and this one's 100 degrees. The longest side is always opposite the biggest angle. So if I just have the angle measures, I can go, oh, this side, that's the biggest side. Smallest side is always opposite the smallest angle. So if that's the smallest angle, that's the smallest side. Okay? If you have a triangle where all the angles are the same, what does that tell you about all three sides? They're all the same. That's an equilateral. Okay? So when we have two that are 45, that means the opposite sides, this side and this side, are going to measure the same thing. Okay? Just one of those things that you haven't seen for 4 years at least. When was COVID year for y'all?
6th grade. It didn't start 5th.
No, it would have been 5th grade because Bailey would have been 6th.
In 5th grade and never came back.
Okay. So you would have been in class to see this, but again, I know that year right after COVID was a hot mess too. So, all right, here's our rules. These are in your notes. I put them up on the board too. I drew the two special triangles, okay? I'm trying to grant you some kindnesses for test and quiz coming up. So a 45, here's the rules. The two legs of the triangle are going to measure the same thing. The hypotenuse is going to be the measure of one of those legs times the square root of 2. I know radicals scare the tar out of you. I will show you what I did on the quiz tomorrow, and I think it will make you happy. All right, so this says find the length of A. So we know that the length of A is going to be x times the square root of 2. Okay? The legs, okay, two sides that make an L, that's x. That's what x is equal to. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug that value into the other one. Okay? So x is 2 times the square root of 2. Side A is equal to x times the square root of 2. So if I swap this out with what I know x is, so I'm going to put it in parentheses, 2 times the square root of 2, and then I've got the square root of 2. That scares the tar out of y'all, right? Like no clue what to do? Let me pull my sheet. It's easier than you think when you're multiplying them. That's not my sheet. I got a whole bunch over here. So here's what happens. When you multiply these, this times this, if you type it in your calculator, maybe you can see what happens. So if we do 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which is what we wrote down, it's a 4. What happens? You multiply what's underneath the radicals. Okay, so the 2 would stay there. Keep the square root. 2 times 2 is 4. What's the square root of 4? And 2 times 2 is 4. So they simplify easier than you think. Okay? On the quiz tomorrow, I set it where you can enter a decimal. So you can literally type this in your calculator, round your decimal off. You're not going to have to simplify radicals on the quiz. I granted you a huge kindness. Okay? Okay. So now, here's our, do I want to do that one? Nope, I want to do this one. I want to do this one because we want to find a leg now. We've already found a hypotenuse. Let's find a leg. There are like baby spiders, like trying to take over this.
Yeah.
We were watching.
Me and Jake were like, Jake looked at me.
I don't
and
know.
I was like distracted.
I had one from the time I opened up my laptop to about 6:30 or so 30 minutes, had already made like a little home over here. Okay, so here's another 45 special, right? So these are the legs, right? Hypotenuse is always opposite. So we want to find what x is. Okay, this one's a little bit different. So this is x. We know this side is equal to x times the square root of 2. Okay, so that diagram again. The legs are equal to x. They're equal to the same thing. The hypotenuse is whatever the leg is times the square root of 2. So you can set up an equation when you're going this direction. Oh, that should be a 2. And you can do menu 3-1 on it. So let's see, menu 3-1, let's see what happens. I'm hoping I'm telling you the right thing. 6 equals x times the square root of 2, comma x. Okay, again, tomorrow on the quiz, I'll take that. 4.2. Here's the expectation though, okay? At this point, you're expected to be able to solve something like this by hand, okay? So to get x by itself, what's happening here is multiplication. So to undo multiplication, we divide by 2, both sides. And then that'll cancel, divide by the square root of 2, I apologize. So x equals 6 over the square root of 2. I've shown you this like once. Remember I told you this is not okay? We don't put radicals on the bottom. So to fix that, you multiply by whatever the denominator is on the top and the bottom. So 6 times the square root of 2 is 6 times the square root of 2. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. But you're still not done. 6 times the square root of 2 over 2 will simplify again. Anybody see it? What will simplify? 6 is the same as 2 times 3. If you have the same thing on the top and the bottom, it cancels out. So the final answer in proper form, the expectation, is that you write your answers like that. Okay? I'm cool with this because we have not practiced this a lot. Okay? But no going into next year, further along this year, this will eventually become the expectation in this class. Okay? For now, let's just know where the pieces go. So if you want to write that down, and I will give you bonus points on this page. If you want to try to simplify radicals, if you want to just put decimals, that's fine. All right, 30, 60, 90 has a different rule. Okay, so you can probably see it up there on my board. Let me pull it up here. Okay, 30, 60, 90. The side that's opposite the 30 degree is going to be kind of your base number, your x. The hypotenuse is going to be twice the length of that side. So whatever the length of this leg is, hypotenuse is always going to be twice that. That's not too bad. here's the one that's gross. The side opposite the 60 is equal to this leg times the square root of 3. That's where it gets gross, okay? So if we want to label this one with those labels, so the side opposite the 30-degree angle is equal to x. The hypotenuse is going to be equal to 2x. And then the other leg, the side opposite of 60, is going to be equal to x times the square root of 3. I know we're going to find the value of v, but just looking at it, what would the hypotenuse be? What would this one measure? 4. That's pretty easy. So this one, this is what we're looking for. X times the square root of 3. Well, we know x equals 2, and we know v equals x times the square root of 3. So we take that value and we plug it in for the x. It's not too awful. Some of them aren't too awful, especially if you don't have to simplify it, okay? Let's find a gross one. I want to do a gross one for you. Let's go ahead and do this one. Same thing. We're finding the value of x here. Those letters kind of make it wonky, though. What side of the triangle is this one right here?
Hypotenuse.
That's the hypotenuse. So we know the hypotenuse is 2 times x, right? So this one's going to be 2 times x. They kind of switched our labels up here, because opposite the 30-degree is our x side, and then this one is our x. So understand that the labels they put, they're just names. We can change something's name to make it easier to work with. So let's make this side x, and then let's make this side y, and let's find the value of side y. So we can use the labels we're used to. That's okay to do. If you change this to y, make sure you change that to y. So, how would I find, I have to find this before I can find this. I got to know what x is. So, what would I do to this? How would I do that?
Yeah, you could divide. You could like.
So can I set it up like an equation? Can I say 2x equals 8 times the square root of 5? Because they're equal to each other, right? So how would you solve for x here?
Or
Real quick, what's the easy way to do it?
divide
Divide
by
by 2, right? Because that's not my final answer. That's not what I'm looking for. And I can leave it in that form. I know it scares you, it's got the radical, but you can leave it like that, and that's okay. So we know y, move this up here, y equals x times the square root of 3. I know what x is, so I can swap this out with this. So I'm going to put it in parentheses, x times the square root of 5 over 2, and I'm going to multiply it by the square root of 3. Any number can be made into a fraction. You just put it over 1, right? I don't even need to do that because, again, on the quiz and for the sake of this class, for me right now, you can just multiply it. You can give me the decimal equivalent. So 8 times the square root of 5 over 2, and we can just multiply that by the square root of 3. Get the decimal, would round to what, 15.5? I'm cool with that answer. 15.5. I'll put that back up there. Here's how you simplify this. Fraction multiplication, top times top, bottom times bottom. So here we would just keep the 8, keep the radical and multiply the two numbers under the radical. 5 times 3 is 15. Multiply the bottoms. 2 times 1 is 2. What's the next step of simplification?
One, the number outside the radical become a 4.
8 is the same as 2 times 4 if I write it as its factors. 2 on top, 2 on bottom. Cancels out the denominator, so my final answer, 4 times the square root of 15. If you type that in your calculator, it's going to give you the same decimal. That's a way that you can check to see if you've done your radical right. Let's do one more of those because I know those are gross. The one I left you really easy. Really easy. All right, we're finding the value of y here. So if this is a 60, this is a 30, right? So typically the side opposite the 30, we would label with an x. So we're going to find the value of x. The hypotenuse is going to be 2 times x. And then the leg opposite the 60 is x times the square root of 3. What's x equal? No fancy math. What's x equal? If 5 times the square root of 3 equals x times the square root of 3, what's x equal?
5.
Does everybody see it? 5 times the square root of 3 equals x times the square root of 3. Okay. So that's the answer to this one. Just a 5. Okay. All right, the last two are word problems. I think we can do these quick. These you have to draw pictures for. So the shortest side of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So here's a triangle. This is going to be the 90. It doesn't matter which one you make, the 30 or the 60. So we know where the hypotenuse is, right? Here's the hypotenuse. Which side would be the shortest side? The vertical leg or the horizontal leg?
Horizontal. No, vertical.
Okay, because it's going to be opposite this. So the shortest is 15. Find the length of the longer leg. So here's what we're looking for. So in a 30, 60, 90, the short leg is x. The longer leg is x times the square root of 3. Okay. I know what x is. X is 15. And that's it. That one's done. There's nothing to simplify. It's good just like that. I know you're looking at it and go, wait, but 3 is a multiple of 15. Inside and outside the radical are two different things. All right. Now we got a 45, 45, 90. So here's the 90. Here's a 45. Here's a 45. What do we know about the two legs of this one? They're going to be the same. This leg is going to be the same as this one. And it says one leg of the triangle is 9. So if this one's 9, this one's 9. And it says find the length of the hypotenuse. So the rule for the 45, 45, the legs are equal to x, and the hypotenuse is x times the square root of 2. So what's the length of the hypotenuse going to be? You just plug a 9 in for that x. So they're not as awful as your brain makes them. Okay, that fear makes them harder than they really are. It makes you overthink. All right, so I left you 3 questions. I left you 2 of the 45s. Okay. And then this one's really easy. This 30, 60 is really easy. On this one, you're finding the other leg. That one's really easy too. This one you're finding the hypotenuse. So this value is x, and then your hypotenuse, what you're looking for, is x times the square root of 2. This times the square root of 2. Simplify it to a decimal. That is okay. If you want to try to simplify the radical for bonus points, that's okay. All you have to do in this one is multiply this piece times the square root of 2 in your calculator. Okay? So that's all that I got for you.